time.
I have two questions here for you, Up. Number one, why does the writing of this song make no sense? Look, I could tolerate cheesy and generic lyrics sometimes. Look at About Us by Desero. But there's a certain line you don't cross with lyrics, and that this song crosses it. The hook of this song is, if you were a daisy in my garden, I'd pick you every time. And as cheesy as that chorus is, it also doesn't work. You can't pick out the exact same daisy in a garden. You're going to have to pick out another daisy that, well, looks alike. And if you're trying to put daisies in a garden as metaphor for your love, picking out random daisies is the equivalent of an affair. It could work if you had only gone to the garden once. But then you say every time, so that implies you're going to keep going to that exact same garden. But number two, why does the drop sound so hollow and boring? The sluggish vocal chop and flat synths don't establish any sort of groove, then the faded snare is as underwhelming as it can get. And we combine it with bad lyrics, that's not a good combination here. Almost is at least tolerable as a vocalist, and if it weren't for him, this would be much lower. So no, this is bad, and a huge step backward from first place. If I find this daisy in my garden, I'm gonna leave it outside.
Hello, audience. I regret to inform you that Bayside Park is gone for this segment. He left due to Crankdat's disappointing output this year. That said, I can read what he was supposed to say. This is it, seriously. We're redoing this again so soon. I mean, this is just in down part 2. With the same ridged drops that somehow sound worse. I at least like the vocal samples. The build-up is decent and thankfully we're spared from a lazy brass-step drop. But if I have to go there, that is not a good sign for your song. At least with Dindom I could make fun of it and create a meme around it. I can't even do that with this single despite the Infinity War reference. In other words, it is bad. Let us move on.
Oh, for the love of... No, I'm not doing this again. It's been 2 months since BEAUZ's painfully basic and bland tune Keep On Dancing released, and here's yet another painfully basic and bland tune from them. But what are the positives to this song? Well, I like the muted snare on the verses and drop, and the build-up is somewhat good. What, you expected more? Nope, that's about it. It's all downhill from here. The vocals are really average and basic, coming from Fia. The production outside of the snare is stuck to the background of the verses, and the drop is slap house that I've heard over 1,000,000 times ever since I've Been Back got huge. So yeah, this is pretty bad too. Not as bad as Keep On Dancing, but it's still bad enough to make me want to forget it. Wait, what was I talking about again? Let's get to the controversy. A few days ago, Monstercat announced a partnership between them and Mobil 1, which was linked to this track. For those of you who don't know, Mobil 1 is an oil company that has a lawsuit out for human violations rights in Indonesia. And when I first heard about this partnership, I was not happy until I heard this was also a partnership with Rocket League, and my rage cooled down a bit because, yeah, that's definitely something Rocket League would do. Monstercat was only probably a part of this due to their ties with the game, meaning the decision wasn't completely theirs nor Koven's. Regardless, how's the track? Well, this is pretty mediocre. Katie sounds like she's on autopilot half the time, the guitars are buried in the mix, making them sound flat, and the drop is one of the most anticlimactic drops I've heard from them in quite some time, with the buzzing synths and the clunky tap of the snare. I at least like the vocal whoops on the drop, and that's probably the one good part about the drops I could tolerate. So yeah, this partnership is really bad, and the song itself isn't all that good. I recommend Monstercat and Koven have a talk with their management at Rocket League to remove Mobil 1 from this track. Or if it's too late to do that, establish a new contract with Rocket League so that doesn't happen again. This partnership will destroy everyone's reputation in the long run. Trust me, it's already happening. Is it just me, or does this track feel underwhelming? Seriously, when I heard that Ivory was going to be on Monstercat, I was expecting his usual heavy dubstep, not this Reaper knockoff, with the vocal chops, the generic synth growls, and blocky percussion. It's not like the drops are even all that bad, they're just so generic coming from him. At least Danny King is able to give a good vocal performance, and she really is the saving grace of this song. I wouldn't say this song is really bad for me, more that it's just disappointing. I was hoping for more here.
Check my laser gun and I go pew 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 pew.
I mean, the irony here is the fact that a Slushy song with Tokyo Machine called Pew Pew is better than the majority of Slushy's entire album this year. And even then, it's not all that good, it's just kinda okay. I like the melody in the pre-drops, most likely coming from Toki, and once we get to that rhythm drop, it isn't bad. It actually is pretty good here with the bubbly synths and clanking percussion, but those house drops aren't all that great. It sounds like something Tokyo Machine has done countless times and usually done better. I mean, I didn't like Last Summer that much, but at least it was different from his usual stuff. And that's before we get into the irritating vocal sample they use. So yeah, I was expecting the worst. Instead it was a mixed bag. At least for me. I was a bit perplexed when I heard about this collaboration. Sure, Dylan Matthews has been on Monstercat before, and before people say this is Nitty Gritty's debut, he's also worked as producer for all of Leia Culver's releases on Monstercat, so just a little FYI there. But anyways, how's the track? Well, it's a decent pop tune. Dylan and Matthew have some pretty good vocals, the electric guitars on the verses and the pre-chorus have some punch to them that I can appreciate, and while the hook is not as memorable and feels a bit underwhelming, it still sounds good with Nitty Gritty's feature-based production backing up Dylan Matthews' vocals. It doesn't drive me crazy in a good or bad way, it's just more of a song that I can listen to and enjoy before moving on with my day. And you know what? That's fine. So Bossfight's EP, Agony District, was a pretty good EP this month. And to start with, we have a more unique song from him. I appreciate that Bossfight went with something different and is actually executed pretty well here. Havion gives a good vocal performance, the garage percussion has enough punch to it to make it stand out, and the atmosphere sounds excellent with the reverb synths, the ghostly vocals, the marimba towards the end of the song, and the echoing brass during the second chorus that sounds really haunting. This proves that Bossfight can make other genres outside of dubstep. It's not as good as the rest of his singles, but it's still a good tune. I like it.
Your face is my remedy, makes me forget all the pain when I can't see straight. I can't see straight.
I'm not surprised we're getting a new track so soon, since Hello World has been getting traction thanks to his remix of Flux Pavilion's Fall Into Me, as well as Too Hard to Let Go being on Rocket League. But with this, I actually like this one more than his last single. The acoustic guitar sounds really good here, Hello World's vocals are quickly growing on me, and the drop sounds good too with the synth pads and sharper trap production. I mean, I wouldn't say this is great just yet, but it's certainly worth listening to. Let's hope if he releases an EP, and given the Instinct previews, I've heard that's possible, I hope it's going to be good. If you're curious, give it a listen.
For the time being, I hate this feeling.
Now we have a song from Mobil and Darby, the latter of which won first runner-up on the Monstercat Mix contest last year. And outside of Belle Ella, who sounds like she's phoning in her vocal performance, this is another good tune from Mobil. The drop sounds good with the vintage synths and Mobil's trap production, and the same thing applies with the rest of the production, with the acoustic guitars on the pre-drop, the electric guitars on the verses, and the reverbed vocal chops. So while it's one of Mobil's weaker tunes, I still think it deserves a listen. This is some good stuff. So Mazar is having a really good year so far. His Wide Awake and Dreaming EP on the Seven Lions label, Ophelia, was a massive step forward from Paracosm last year. But now he's back on Monstercat, and okay, let's get this out of the way. Calvin Louise is the worst part of the song, but hey, at least they're better than, say, Agnes. Mostly because her vocals on the verses are good enough, and the second pre-chorus actually sounds really satisfying to hear, but it's when the vocalist starts screaming on the chorus, it really bugs me. I'm usually fine with screamo vocals, but here, they just don't click with me. However, once you're able to get past that, this is a really good drum and bass rock tune from Mazar. The electric guitars have some punch to them, the cymbals during the build-up sound great, the short guitar solo on the post-drop is pretty unique, and the drop has a hard-hitting and catchy lead to it that I can really enjoy. If the vocals were better, this would be higher, but for what it's worth, it's still a good tune that you should listen to. I'll take it.
This is your moment.
Hey Athena and Smile, thanks for giving me a nice birthday present. Yeah, I share a birthday with Monstercat. What an odd coincidence that is. Anyways, back to the song. This is a pretty good tune. Athena gives a decent vocal performance, the pianos on the pre-chorus sound good as well as the light blocky snare, and the drop is a well-mixed and well-constructed future bass tune. It's unfortunate that Smile isn't making more songs on Monstercat. They need to. It was obvious it was going to be on Rocket League, but the song is so great that I'm happy it is, so check this out. It's no surprise Bossfight returned to making hardcore here. His style really does work with the hardcore genre. Bossfight and hardcore goes together as good as, well, Quantum TV and YouTube copyright abuse. And while that combo is awful, Bossfight's hardcore really shines through here. The hardcore kicks sound beefy and hard-hitting, the synth screams sound great, and that middle drop was unexpected yet refreshing to hear. So yeah, this is another good tune from Bossfight. I dig it. Okay, do any of you remember McMizzou from last year? He worked with Danny Lex on a single called Be With You, which if you ask me wasn't all that good. Well, he's back with a new single, and this time is actually pretty good. Leah Rose's vocals are good here, but the production is really the moment that makes this song shine. From the vintage synths on the verses to the drop with the pixelated synths and sharper snare, it reminds me a lot of songs from Son Hollow's label Bitbird, a lot like Crashing Down by Mobil did. Wasn't expecting much from this single, but I got something good here. Let's hope if McMizzou sticks around, he makes more of this. Oh, you know, just Bossfight doing his Bossfight thing, making a hard dubstep song with a wiry synth, dubstep growls, and vocal samples. I'm not at all surprised that this was the next single off of Agony District. It's a pretty standard Bossfight tune, but it's still a great Bossfight tune nonetheless. And while the track can sometimes get a bit clunky, I still enjoyed it. If you're a fan of Bossfight, definitely give this a listen. So Infected Mushroom comes back after a year to present their latest single with Bliss, who's back after 2 years for this track. A track that is over 10 minutes long, which breaks the record for the longest track on Monstercat. And no, the deep dive does not count since that was before Monstercat became a part of Silk. And man, this song is a journey. I actually was there for the premiere of this song, and I had a really good time with this track. Despite the fact that it's 10 minutes long, it feels more like 5 minutes, because Infected Mushroom switches up the production little by little, so the song doesn't become stale, which is smart on their part. And when we get to the mid-tempo switch up towards the end of the song that I was not expecting, it sounds great. And while I'm not a fan of the vocal samples on this song, I still think it's a great tune that you should listen to, at least once.
Chase it like it's do or die.
My goodness, Bat Computer, you are really going to make my best of 2022 list difficult, aren't you? Because this is yet another amazing song from him. Bat Computer's vocals are good here, and the production is great, with the lush synths on the verses, the vocoder that actually sounds good on the chorus, the great off-drop section, and the drop itself with the Bat Computer's classic snappy percussion, vintage synths, and a really catchy lead that has been stuck in my head ever since I heard the song. So yeah, this is another amazing tune. Check it out. Good grief, Caster, turn the heat down a bit. Seriously, between this song and Shadowblade, Caster is quickly becoming one of the best and most interesting newcomers to Monstercat in a while. The roaring lead that follows the song throughout, the garage midsection that sounds a lot better if you just hear it for yourself, and two hard-hitting drops, one more melodic, and the other is an off-the-walls rhythm drop. Given how well Bossfight's EP was, I want to hear Caster make a song with Bossfight someday. Regardless if it happens or not, this song is still awesome, and a track that outclasses this month's competition, except for...
I'm just a pawn, but nothing hurts better than you.
I'm just gonna briefly quote from Bowtied Media on Twitter. What did you two just create? Cause this might be the best thing I've heard on Monstercat in a while. Grant's vocals are great as always. The guitars on the verses and pre-drop sound really good and help flesh out the song. And the drop is a really solid blend of both Grant's lead and Ellis's French electro percussion, adding a lot of groove to the song that actually makes you want to dance. Never thought a collaboration between Grant and Ellis would work out as well as it did, but here we are. This is definitely best of 2022 material. Check this out. And that was our month. Outside of a few singles and that ugly Mobile 1 partnership, this month was a pretty good month for Monstercat. Instinct was pretty underwhelming, but Uncaged had some really good tracks here. As for next month, Conroe and Aviella released their song, Rogue returns with Starlight, Leia Culver returns with her single Give It All, Francis Durrell and Cray Mock release Here For Now, and Koven releases their EP, Higher Ground Part 1. Let's hope that's at least good. But until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.